My name is Caleb Burnett, and welcome to my second feature film. As you have guessed, this isn't a story about me being snow. As you have guessed, this isn't a story about that will be the only. That will be the only. That will be the only being snow. That will be the only. So it will never have the scene. Sorry, being snow fans. So it will never have the scene. Sorry. Instead, I decided to focus on a new story. This one instead, I decided to focus on a new story. This one mixes even kung fu. Fantasy. Yes, this is a kung fu. Even kung fu. Anyway, yes, as this is a kung fu. As this movie is called Shu and the Dojo Master. If you have good inference called Shu and the Dojo Master. If you have good inference that dojo means that this will probably you may have already know that dojo means that this will probably is a kung fu movie. A kung fu. And it's not gonna be like it is a kung fu. In fact, this is gonna be part 1 of 3. Or the first installment this is going to be part 1 of 3, or the first installment of the Shu trilogy. To watch stay tuned after this film. Actually, the second to watch the third overall in Caleb actually the second film called third one the Rise of the Caleb Burnett. After that called we'll take a Rise of the break from after that Shu and make another little short break from War Shu, and then afterwards we will called War will now make, and then after finale we will and the final showdown of the world. The finale Shu and the final showdown of the world. This intro may have been similar to this intro may have been similar to the Beam Snow film. However, it's entirely new. As you can guess, it's entirely new. Well, as you can guess, different. I mean, its background has the same color. And background has the same color. New text. That's pretty cool. Anyway, it's got a new text. Anyway, but let's talk about the world that we're stepping into. Anyway, but let's talk about here we are in Sensoji, we're stepping into now. So here we are in Sensoji, Japan, and it's full of a bright and colorful place. And it's full of fun surprises. The place we are currently right now is Sensoji Square. The place we are currently right now is Sensoji Square. And yes, Sensoji Japan is actually a real place. And yes, however, I don't think of things such as a real place. However, I don't think of things such as Sensoji Square. But it works pretty well if you're trying to do this for a fictional story. It works pretty well if you're trying to do my stories are indeed fictional. And that is. So as of right now, I'm currently in a 360 view. So as of right now, I'm currently in a 360 view, viewing around here we can find some buildings like Sensoji Square. Here we can find where our main character gets his first ever kung fu stick. Which is where our main character gets his first ever kung fu stick. And we also get for many years some restaurants in Sensoji Square. We also get one of them being some Samurai Sensoji Square. One of them being Samurai Sydney isn't a girl. Sushi. And so yes, Sydney isn't a girl. Anyway, so and that'll actually be. That's actually one of Shu's favorite places to eat. That's actually one of Shu's favorite places. Because Shu is the main character. That's our story. Because Shu is the main character of our story. One last thing on the world is that it's somewhat based on the world. It's not as peaceful as Catfield, somewhat, but basically there's it's not as peaceful as Catfield, but basically there's a lot more. Since they are ninjas, thieves, and callous are since they are ninjas, thieves, but that's just how the world functions. And now without further ado, that's just how let's get into the story. And now without further ado, let's get into the story. Before we even begin our story, we have to embrace ourselves into the story of Kung Fu. We have to embrace ourselves into the story of Kung Fu is spread out across 4 centuries. In this story, it all starts with the sprout across 4 centuries. The first century started with the Master of all, who was the first century started with the Master of all, and it was also the creator. It was also Kung Fu. It was also and it was also of the Masters of Fire. It was also the orphan heirs of the masters. They were four masters together. Earth and air. With the master of all. They were four masters being the one together. With the master of all. He fathered them. Being the one and only. Next in the 2nd century of Kung Fu. Came in a different generation of Kung Fu masters. Came in a different generation. Next came the 12 Zodiac masters. Next came the 12 Zodiac masters. Anyway, but it's basically like, Chinese. Anyway, but it's basically like the Chinese thing. No, not the Zodiacs, but no, not the Zodiacs, but when it's Chinese New Year. So it's actually the 12 when it's Chinese New Year. So it's actually the 12 anyway. And that's what happened in the 2nd generation of Kung Fu. Anyway, and that's what happened in the 2nd generation of Kung Fu. Soon after that, in the 5 masters before, soon after that, died. The 5 masters beforehand, they had lived long, peaceful lives. But now it's time they had lived longer, peaceful lives. But now it's time next up came the 3rd century of Kung Fu, and this next up came the 3rd century of Kung Fu. This is where an entirely new generation of masters came. This is where these were entirely new generation of masters came. They weren't as special as the previous. Uncommon. They weren't as special. It brought the names of masters like Master. But it brought the names of and Senpai of masters who is actually choose grandfather and Senpai. However, he doesn't really play much important. However, he doesn't really play much important. He's more designed for the 3rd does, but in fact, he actually more designed as a 3rd. In fact, he actually appears as a twin. In fact, when Senpai died, when Senpai died, I also came back to life as a kid. He was called. I also came back to life as a soul of self called a soul of self. It's basically the eternal soul. Someone. It's basically when someone dies. Especially Kung Fu Master. It's basically when they can be brought back to life, especially Kung Fu Master. And they can be brought back to life by you can't physically see them. And from there you can talk to them. You can't physically see them. You can see them. And that's pretty fun. You can see them. And do you ever wish this happened in real life? It's all I wish it would. Do you ever wish this happened in real life? Because I wish it would. See what would happen if I did that and wanted to talk to someone like see what would happen if I did that and wanted to talk to someone like Johnny. Like they're my favorite things, or even Charlie Watts. And now they're my favorite. The most recent. And now we come to the most recent of Kung Fu generation. This is the 4th century of Kung Fu. And the current this is the 4th century of Kung Fu. This is where the current century of Kung Fu. Officially making characters. However, he was born in the 3rd officially making appear. But however, he was born in the 3rd century. But anyway, and that's the parallel creature. Parallel, and that's the parallel. You may be thinking, wait. There's 2 paralogs of this? You may be thinking, there's actually quite a lot of information that we kind of had to go over. There's actually quite a lot of information that we kind of had to go over. But that's just how... It's mostly just to explore the lore of the stories. It's mostly just to explore the lore of the stories. Anyway, so Paralog 2 focuses about Shu. Anyway, so Path focuses about Shu. Actually, it focuses on Shu and his characters. Actually, it focuses on Shu. So Shu is a Kumpat. And so Shu is a Kumpat. And a Kumpat, it's basically a creature that has a cylinder. It's basically a creature that has a cylinder head. They have a dome. They have little feet and little arms. They have their little feet and little arms. And they're only about. But basically, from their only about bottom of their foot. It's basically from the bottom of their dome. It's about 3 inches to their dome. So they're not really 3 inches. I guess they're sort of like. So they're not really like. They're generally only about half the size. But like, and baby Kumpas generally only about half the size. Are only and baby Kumpas can only be are only about 1 foot tall. The Kumpas used to live in the mud. In hot mud. The Kumpas used to live in the mud. There's a whole story about Kumpas. There's a whole story about Kumpas. But that's kind of for another story. In fact, that story's called. But that's kind of for another story. But the story won't be. In fact, that story's called as discussed. But the story won't be. As that's not the main objective of the film. in this film, as that's not the main objective. I think I've covered all the personal and all of the, I think I've covered all the personal parallel and all information that I've gone over. Parallel and all that I need that I've gone over. So now, we can finally start a story. This is the story of Chu and the Dojo Master. This is the story of Chu and the Dojo Master. Our story takes place in Sensoji, Japan. Our story takes place in Sensoji, Japan, which is the main center. Which is also the main. Chu lived, which is the main center of the story. In a tower. Chu lived, and it was with a twin set in a tower. And it was towers called the Twin Towers of Chuan. There were two towers called the Twin Towers of Chuan. Chuan was basically a philosopher, and also Chuan was basically a philosopher, and also he was credited of Sensoji, Japan, working on. He was credited for. He built these as working on the Twin Towers of Chuan. In order, he built these as and built these for opponents to sleep for the night. And then eventually come to sleep for the night to fight each other, and then eventually come to the next circle, ready to fight each other, and in big dojo circles, and in circular squares. The circle is about the circle length of your bed. The circle is about the diameter length of your bed. The length of your bed. So it has a diameter. It's a perfect circle. The length of your bedroom. So and it's a perfect circle. Anyway, but Chu lives on the left tower. Anyway, but Chu lived on the left tower, and below that, the Twin Towers of Chuan were rocks, and below that, it was also an ocean. Well, actually a river, and it was also a river. Well, actually a river, but it was a river. That were three rivers. The three rivers were called Tutsi, Dudi. The three rivers were called Tutsi, Dudi, and this river was the Tutsi River. And this river was the Tutsi River. The Tutsi River and the Tutsi River, well, the were connected like a wind propeller. They were connected like a wind propeller, and they all went at different rivers connect with the main point, and they all went at different points. With the main point being a large bay, ships would come in. There, that's where they would transport things like fish, food. They would transport things like fish and seafood products, oil. But I think I'm getting too far ahead of the story. After all, I think I'm getting too far ahead of the story. After all, I think I'm trying to get you as much information as possible. I'm trying to get you as much information as possible, so you can know as much as. So Chu was sleeping peacefully in the story in his bed. So Chu was sleeping peacefully. Soon the sun came up, and Chu's eyes soon the sun came up, but very slowly. And Chu's eyes now like soon opened, but very slowly. Now like quite slowly, but very. He soon stretched his hands back. And said, he soon stretched his hands up, and what said, a great day. And yes, that is Chu's voice. What a great fun fact, Chu is actually voiced by me. I've been doing voices since 2011. Chu is actually voiced by me. I've been doing voices since 2011. So yeah. Well, looks like it's time to start my day and get some breakfast. Well, looks like it's time to start my day and get some breakfast. And decide to make breakfast. So Chu went down and decided to make breakfast. Household, he had a robot and 5 sons. He had a robot. The sons were named sons. Hugh. The sons were named New, Rue, Hugh, and Lou, Rue, and so they all rhyme. And Chu. However, the name that doesn't rhyme is a robot named Lamode. However, the name that doesn't rhyme isn't classified as an official member. Lamode just like how classified as an official Rolling Stone member. Just like how Daryl Jones isn't a Rolling Stone member at all. He's not an official member. Lamode was a robot built by Chu. Lamode was a robot classified as a member of the even though he's not classified as a member of the he still serves a pretty important part of Chu's life. He still serves a pretty important part. He makes sure of Chu's that Chu does well. He makes sure, and also with the clan that Chu does well. And he makes sure that everyone he makes sure that everyone he's practically the companion and sound. And sometimes he would even go on quest and help. And sometimes he would even go on quest and help journey the 6 and also help them win fights. their journey, and also help them win fights. Though a typical clan in this story is generally about typical clan in this story is generally about 6 people, but he's kind of a robot. You could count robots are not humans, but he doesn't qualify like the other 8.237 billion. He doesn't qualify like the other 8.237 billion. I don't know what he is. So I don't know what he is. Anyway, but whatever he is, he's still part of Chu's clan. Anyway, but whatever he is, Lamo he's himself still part of Chu's clan. Is indeed a robot, and he's also incredibly smart. Is indeed a robot, he can do over 65 mathematical. For example, he can kind of like why 65 mathematical functions. I know I'm crazy. I kind of like why do all that. I know I'm crazy. Anyway, I think I should be talking about Lamode. Because that's not the main part of the story. I think I should be talking about Lamode. Because that's not the main part of the story. To make some breakfast. For breakfast, he decided to make some breakfast. For breakfast, he decided to make since fruit is pretty common in Japan. Since fruit is pretty common in Japan. Great dish if you're having breakfast. I bet they'll also make a I've never been to Japan, but having breakfast in Japan. Maybe I've never been to Japan, but who knows? Maybe I would want to one day. But Chu got out some. Anyway, but Chu got out from the cabinets and from the fridge. Fruit. He had some, from the cabinet. He had some things like pineapple. He had some. He had some things like pineapple, apple, watermelon, bananas, peaches, blueberries, and countless other apples, even including dragon berries and countless other fruits, even including dragon fruit. So then Chu got out a cutting board, and eventually started cutting. He sliced and diced them all up and put them into bowl. He sliced and diced them all up and put them into bowl. He also seasoned it with some breakfast seasonings. He also seasoned it with some breakfast cinnamon and nutmeg, and some cinnamon and nutmeg. But that wasn't all that Chu was planning for breakfast. He was actually planning a full-fledged meal for breakfast. He was actually planning to decide to make some pancakes, eggs. So he decided to make some pancakes, eggs, some turkey bacon. Yes, that's right, some turkey bacon. I like turkey bacon, yes, that's right, and I can't eat real bacon because it's I like turkey bacon, and I can't eat real bacon because it's not kosher for me. Anyway, so Chu decided to make to start getting out the things that he needed for the other to start getting out the such as that pancakes, he needed for the other turkey bacon. Such as pancakes, he quickly whisked out some milk. He quickly whisked out some milk and decided and a whisking spoon. Whisks up a thick mix of pancakes. He decided a thick mix to add give extra milk. He decided for the pancakes to add give extra milk. Thin, but not too thick. Be nice or not too thin, but not too thick. Cast iron or not too cast iron pan. He then got a cast iron pan to wait for and decided to wait for the pan to heat up. And then after it was done heating up, for the pan to heat up. And then after it was done heating up, next he decided to get the eggs. He decided to get the eggs. 15 eggs. He poured them together about, and he whisked them all. And he whisked them all together. And he whisked them all. And he whisked them all as seasonings. And put that into a separate pan as a seasoning. And then for a third pan, he put into a separate pan. And then for a third pan, he put in the turkey bacon. But he sometimes liked to eat. Chu was not much of a meat lover, but he sometimes liked to eat up. And this was a second cast iron for the pan to heat up. Chu always had this was a second cast iron pan, just so he could keep a spare in case one was lost. Just so he could keep a spare in case one was lost. Or if one had been broken or shattered. After the pan was done heating up, Chu put the turkey bacon after the pan was done heating up. And after all that, he decided to cook the meal himself. And after all that, after he was all decided to cook the meal, he decided to tell the others. After he was all beforehand, the others had already smelled the delicious. But beforehand, the others had already smelled. They had started coming down one by one. At this point, they had started coming down one by one. Actually as one single file line. What is this breakfast I'm smelling? Man, what is this breakfast I'm smelling? Said, I don't know, but it smells very good, said Hugh. I don't know, but it smells very good, said Hugh. Please enjoy yourself to some delicious breakfast. We got some eggs, we got some turkey bacon, we got some pancakes, We got some fruit. We got some pancakes. And best of all, we got some fruit.
It's delicious.
So
It's delicious. Yes, this is what I sound like. Yes, this is what I sound like.
Don't you get too long.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You get too long.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, that's okay, Lamont. That's okay. Soon after, all of the clan, all the members of the clan were eating breakfast together. All the members of the clan were eating breakfast together. They were also making conversation. Amongst that, Chu was talking to Lamont about how the day was going so far. Chu was talking to Lamont. He thought it was going to be a very nice day, but that would soon change. He thought it was going to be a very nice day, but that would soon change. Soon after breakfast, a specific event happened. Soon after breakfast, Senpai alerted Senpai came in his room. Senpai kept Senpai's candle in his room. Shu kept Senpai's candle near the bedside in his room. He had a cabinet near the bedside. He had a cabinet was close to the cabinet. And the bed was close to the speaking. Senpai, there's something going on. What is it? What is it, Senpai? Is it bad? Did I let the burner on? What is it, Senpai? Is it bad? Did I let the burner on? It looks like someone's ready to fight, said Senpai. But it looks like someone's ready to fight you, said Shu. But who's ready to fight me? I believe it's someone new. You haven't quite. I believe it's someone but new. His name is Wuhan. Quite encountered. Wuhan, but that doesn't even ring a bell. Wuhan, that doesn't even ring a bell. Wuhan. Alright, thank you, Senpai. Wuhan. Alright, Shu, bye. Alright, thank you, Senpai. Alright, I gotta warn the others. That was him marching and frantically run. And yes, that was him marching and frantically run. We are in serious trouble. Guys, there's a guy trying to fight us. We are in serious trouble. There's a guy trying to fight us, and his name is Wuhan. Yeah, no.
Wuhan, that's awful.
What do you think he wants? Yeah, no. I think he wants us to fight. What do you think he wants? And we know. I think he wants us to fight. And we know what we must do. We must do. Anyway, that was supposed to be Blitzkrieg Bob by the Ramones. Anyway, that was supposed to be Blitzkrieg Bob. I like that song a lot. Anyway, but I like that song a lot. And also Lamont. Anyway, but Chu and the clan were kind of pacing around. Anyway, we're kind of at that point around. They had decided to frantically walk. At that point, they had decided to frantically walk. They sort of did that, but they mostly just walk. And sort of marched away but they mostly just like marching a waltz and sort of marched away up to Wuhan. Like marching a waltz in a marching band. After quite a few minutes, they came to the gates of Wuhan's temple. They came to the gates of Wuhan's temple. They knocked on the gate. They knocked on the gate. They knocked on the gates. Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. Hello? Oh no. Hello? It's the Chu clan. Oh no. That's right, Wuhan. It's the we came here because it's that's because right, of you. Wuhan. We came here because it's because of you. I know, that may sound like a bit aggressive, but that's kind of what sound like a big aggressive. He's threatened. That's kind of what Chu does. In fact, when you're threatened, you actually have a right to run. In fact, when you're threatened, you actually have a right to run. No matter how ridiculous it is, or how serious. No matter how ridiculous it is. Those are just some personal safety rights, of course. Those are just some personal safety rights, of course. But at that point, Chu and his clan started approaching them slowly. Chu and his clan started approaching them slowly. At that point, Wuhan and his clan were starting to back up. Things were getting pretty tense. At that point, the air was silent. Things were getting pretty tense. The air was silent for quite a bit. Until then, finally Chu gave the final blow. Until then, finally Chu gave the final blow. And so Chu's clan attacked. And no, there's no blood or violence in this story. And no, there's no blood or violence in this story. It's not like Family Guy. So, anyway, it's not like Family Guy. Basically, they had a nice friendly duel. Basically, they had a nice friendly duel. Chu was trying desperately to get Wuhan off his Chu was trying desperately to get Wuhan off his He was actually trying to get off his nerves. So, he did that. He was actually trying to get off his
because
nerves.
Wuhan was really on Shu's nerves when this happened. Because Wuhan was really on Shu's nerves when this happened.
Which I'm not going to go into because
after quite
this
a
may
bit of
contain
time,
some very
which I'm not going to
offensive,
go into because
maybe
this
not
may contain
offensive,
some
but
very offensive,
may contain some unsettling
maybe
imagery.
not offensive, but
or some
may
fight
contain some
scenes,
unsettling
which I'm
imagery.
definitely not gonna show.
Or some fight scenes,
well, we can't
which
even
I'm
show
definitely
it,
not
so.
gonna show.
Well, we
I'm
can't
gonna
even
leave out
show
the
it,
picture,
so.
okay? I'm gonna leave out the picture.
This
okay?
part is now censored.
Anyway, after Chu's clan fought, after Chu's clan eventually won the fight, and Wuhan's clan eventually won the fight. At that point, Wuhan's clan Chu and his clan decided to head home. At that point, Chu and his clan decided to head
This
home.
cannot be over.
Well,
No,
too bad,
said
sucker,
Wuhan.
because
this cannot
we
be
won.
over.
Well, too
Yeah.
bad, sucker, because said Chu.
We won.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she likes to rub
Said
into
Chu.
people's faces. Yeah, and she likes to rub
he's
into
a
dirty
people's
faces.
cheaters.
Or dirty sportsman. Like he's a dirty
But he's generally
cheater
not
or a
that
dirty
all the time.
sportsman. He's actually that.
But he's actually
generally
like
not
that
that
quite
all the
rarely.
time. He's actually that. He's actually like
Anyway.
that quite rarely. Chu and his clan then head back. Anyway, and after quite a few minutes, clan then head back. And after quite a few minutes, several minutes, and they came back to their. They walked back very slowly into the left. They came back to their towers. Wuhan was into the left tower. Some way to get back. Wuhan was furious, and his clan. Some way he was very unsettled, and his clan by the fact that he was very unsettled by the fact that he had won out. That they have won out of nowhere. We need a plan. Okay, Master, what's the plan? Said Wuhan. Okay, he Master, what's the plan? Said Wuhan. He was one of Wuhan's sons. And yes, Chu and Wuhan both had sons. And yes, they had Chu 5 of them and Wuhan both had sons. So for Wuhan, he had Yuhan. So for Wuhan, he had Yuhan, and Ruhan. Fuhan and Ruhan. And yes, that's practically it. Anyway, yes, that's practically it. Anyway, so Wuhan and his clan came up with a plan. Wuhan and his clan came up with a plan. They were unsure about where they were headed to, but thankfully, Wuhan had a plan, unfortunately, and he actually had a plan. Actually, he actually had a dead hand, which is the one that actually has when he's talking to Senpai. Which is the one that Chu has when he's talking to Senpai. So Wuhan himself, when he did indeed have a deceased person, and a deceased father, and his name was Suhan, and a deceased father, and his name was Suhan, and so Suhan came, and said, "You should take revenge of that dirty, filthy coonpot. You should take revenge of that dirty, filthy coonpot." Yeah, that's right, a coonpot. Also, coonpot is not a derogatory word. Also, coonpot is not some racial slurs and some offensive words. I'm not gonna say some offensive words regarding coonpots. I'm not gonna say them. Okay. Wuhan and his clan came up with a quiet plan to get revenge at Chu. Wuhan and his clan came up with a perfect plan to get revenge at Chu. Back at the left tower of the Twin Towers. Back at the left tower of the Twin Towers. Or just relaxing in their rooms. Chu decided just relaxing in their rooms. He decided that they all insist to do something. He decided that they all insist to go to, which is a samurai sushi, and is a place that we that's and is probably gonna be. Hey guys, said Chu. How about we all go to? Hey guys, samurai sushi. How about we all go to? I bet that's a good place. Sydney Sushi. I love that place. I bet that's a good place. Yeah, me too. I love that place. Said Lou. Yeah, me definitely me. Said Lou. And so on. Definitely me, said Lou. And Lamo was definitely all in. And so on. And this was actually his first time eating at a sushi place. And this was actually his first time eating at a sushi robot eat human. And you might be thinking, how in the world Lamote was given these abilities to act like a human, was given these abilities, still a robot, to act like a human. but he can do human things. So he can do half human things, unhuman. So he can do half human things. So one of the human things that Lamo can do is actually eat the human things that Lamo can do, and Shu gave him this ability, so that way Lamo wouldn't always. And Shu gave him this ability, so that way Lamo wouldn't always be stuck eating oil, car oil, so that way he wouldn't be eating metals and junks. So that way he wouldn't be eating metals. Later that evening, at around 6 p.m. Soon, later that evening, clan at around 6 p.m. and went downtown. His clan decided to head out the door and went downtown, which is the place that we are currently right now. Which is the place that we are currently. Shu's clan had already arrived. At that point, Sydney was Shu's clan had already arrived, and she was indeed a Sydney was also a very nice girl, and she was indeed a samurai, and she was also a very nice quite a teenager. Or a 20 or about she was quite a teenager woman or a 20 or about 20-year-old. She also worked woman from the rest of other 20-year-olds. She also worked with some other, and she was doing this out of college. And she was doing this, but she and her team were very supportive. But she and her team were very supportive of Shu. She always admired the clan's differences and ability to. She always admired the clan's differences and their ability to speak across all the world. And their ability to speak. Kupods were very rare in Central Japan. So Kupods were very rare and heavily praised for their times. So ever since they were formed in 1970 times. Ever since they were formed in 1970 places 2010. So at this point, Shumen's clan had been together for over 30 years. So at this point, Shumen's clan had been together for over 30 years. 32 to be near basically Shu and his clan, but basically went on in. And Shu decided to have a seat at a bit of a bar, and they decided but no, they did not drink alcohol. At a bit of a bar, but no, they did not drink alcohol. They decided to get on the television. They were playing Chinese shows. On the television, they were playing Chinese shows. They were playing a mix of Japanese culture shows like anime. They were playing a mix of Japanese culture shows like anime. The thing that was on tonight was Japanese anime. The thing that was on tonight was Japanese anime. And practically Japanese anime. And there's stuff like that. Practically Japanese anime. Like the Wild Shu's clan was watching Japanese anime. The Wild Shu's clan was watching Japanese anime. Wuhan's clan came in. Eating sushi. Wuhan's clan came in. That was supposed to be the sound of that. Anyway. That was supposed to be the sound of that. Stormed in. Anyway. Wuhan's clan stormed in against the wall. That was sorry for the sound door slam. That's what I like to do. Sorry for the sound effects, but that's what I like to do. But Wuhan's clan stormed in, and everyone soon shook up with fear. And everyone soon shook up with fear. And his face was half in fear, half in anger. And his face was half in fear, half in anger. Shu said. Why are you here? We're just having a peaceful dinner. Why are you here? We're just having a peaceful dinner. Huh? What's wrong? Are you jealous? Shu's not that mucking, but that's his kind. Shu's not that mucking, but that's his kind. So he's kind of not all like an angel. So he's kind of not all like an angel. Maybe like a devil's boy, sort of. Anyway, maybe like a devil's boy. But Shu and his clan looked around. Anyway. But Shu and his clan looked around. They were all in shock, but they had started to grab out. They were all in shock, but they had started to grab out their kung fu sticks, and Shu and Wuhan gave each other some very nasty long stairs. Wuhan gave each other some very nasty long stairs. Profoundly long stairs. Shu signaled his attacks. Then Shu signaled, said Shu, his attacks, and thus attack. And thus said Shu, the restaurant became a fight scene, or the scene of a crime. The restaurant became a fight scene, or the scene of a crime. People were throwing balls everywhere. Okay, maybe people were throwing balls. People were in utter chaos. Okay, maybe not. Some people were in utter chaos. Some people were. And some were shocked, and some were shocked, and some even ran away. Some were shocked, and some were shocked, and some even ran away. clearly tried to break up a fight, so that way clearly tried to break up a fight, and that way Chu and that way Cindy was indeed very sympathetic and had pretty good, and Cindy was indeed very sympathetic and had pretty good empathy. She was also kind of supportive, and heck, she even had a bit of a small crush on him, just because of his adorableness, because of his adorableness. And it's also because Chu has charisma and stuff like that. It's also because Chu has charisma. Meanwhile, and stuff like that. Other people in the staff tried to break up the fight. Eventually tried to break up Wuhan came to an end. Eventually, and they were ultimately stopped by the staff came to an end. And they were ultimately stopped by the staff of Samurai. Alright guys, break it up. Chu, I'm sorry this happened. Alright guys, break it up. Okay. Chu, I'm sorry this happened. Chu is about to cry. Okay. Come on guys, let's go. Chu is about to cry. Come on guys, let's go. Chu was literally crying at Chu said. And soon everyone came out. Chu was literally crying at them. And soon everyone came out. Chu had tears in his eyes because he had kind of been harassed and embarrassed. All because he had kind of been harassed and embarrassed. He knew that he could not let this happen to him again. So he knew that he could not let this safety measures. So he decided to take all practical safety measures to make sure that plan could stay safe. And his kumpots, no one spoke that could stay safe. Everyone came home and closed their doors. Everyone came home and closed their doors. But before that, the next day, something terrible happened. But before that, Wuhan had something terrible happened. That he had been defeated by the staff. Wuhan had felt that he had been defeated by the staff. Wuhan kind of had hatred for Sydney. Wuhan kind of had hatred. I don't know why, but Sid, he just had hatred no matter what. I also don't know why, but he kind of into hatred no matter what. He was kind of into missing. His clan came back. And they decided his clan have a nice loud conversation. They were booming with loud conversation about what they were going to do. They were booming with laughter about what they were going to be an atrocious event. And it was going to be an atrocious event. That night, and Wuhan's clan decided to sneak Wuhan's clan decided to sneak. They snuck into the left tower of the Twin Towers of the left tower. They practically committed the Twin Towers of Tron. They practically and maybe even property damage. They also destroyed and maybe even property damage. They also destroyed belongings of first they grabbed belongings. First they snuck in. First they grabbed and quietly closed the door. They snuck in. Chu was already dead asleep at the time. Closed the door. So he couldn't. Chu was already dead asleep at the time. So he couldn't have heard anything. At that point, anyway, Wuhan's clan at that point to go up. Wuhan's clan to kidnap Chu's entire clan and decide to kidnap Chu's entire clan, except for maybe that will teach him a lesson. Because maybe that will teach him a lesson. Wuhan's clan literally wants to kidnap. At this point, all 5 Wuhan's clans literally wants to kidnap, not for himself, all 5 and also for robots. Chu's clan. Not for himself, snuck and also for robots. Eyes of the Kumpots. They snuck and also for robots. They were already dead asleep, and also for robots. Anyway, they were already dead asleep, and they put them in bags. They carried them with them, and they were forced to them in bags. And they were forced to be tortured. They were dragged across the cobblestone road. They were dragged across feel uneasy. They also had a lot, which made them feel uneasy. They also had a lot of scrapes. Anyway, they were brought in from this. And Chu's clan, except they were brought in, and Chu's clan was very shocked at himself. They were all screaming was very shocked at this. They were all Wuhan's clan decided not to do anything about it. Wuhan's clan decided not to do anything about it. Wuhan was not sure what them as they all do, but he was not. Wuhan was not sure what he was going to do, but he was not Ember Robot, because that would be a little too dark. Ember Robot, because that would be a little too dark for this robot. But the Chu's Ember Robot had decided, but Chu's clan and his stay awake had decided. They couldn't sleep all throughout the night. and they were blindfolded. They couldn't sleep all throughout and had their mouths shut, and they were blindfolded. Their noses and had their mouths shut. However, they had restricted access to their nose. However, so it's kind of like restricted access to their breathe at all. So it's kind of like, so that right there is couldn't even breathe at all. And yes, Wuhan went so that right there is clear torture. This is a time in which Wuhan went too far. This is a time in Bell. Wuhan went unhinged. He went too far. He crossed the line. Anyway, he went too far. He crossed the line. The next morning. Anyway, Chu woke up then and instantly knew something was wrong. Chu woke up, rushed and instantly knew something and decided to make some breakfast. He rushed, however, after he was decided to make some breakfast. He soon realized that after he was done making breakfast, he checked everywhere. He soon realized that no one came up. He checked everywhere. He checked in the trash can, the fridge. He checked everywhere. He checked in the trash can and his robot. He checked everywhere for the coon pots. Unfortunately, he could not find any. This made Chu very sad not find any. Until this made Chu very sad inference skills and using his very great intelligence inference skills and using his very great intelligence instantly knew something was up. And instantly knew that he laid his hands and pointed his finger on one thing. He laid his hands and pointed his finger on one thing. Wuhan. Chu decided to storm out, almost slamming the door. Chu decided to storm out, almost slamming the door. He marched out and in a very frantic way rushed. He marched out and in a very frantic way rushed to Wuhan. Then he came busting down the doors. Release my then. Release my clan now. Release my release my clan or now. Chu said. Well, the consequences aren't gonna be very nice. Well, the consequences aren't gonna be very nice.
My savior.
And yes, Chu
My
is indeed
savior.
And yes, Chu is indeed the clan could not really see or hear it. Could not really see it. Could not really see or hear it. Could not really see it. They could hear some of the fact that Chu had finally still of the fact that Chu had finally learned to say. Then Wuhan and Chu got into a fight. Then and for the first time Chu got into a time in the story. And for the first time today, and after that time Chu won the fight. And after that, Chu won the fight, and his Wuhan was ordered to release. They all soon marched out, and his robot. They all soon marched out, left all by himself with his clan. He was getting left all by himself with his clan. He had been trying very hard. He had been trying very hard. Yes, to exterminate the plot of a darker character. Yes, the story is kind of a lot more darker than darker character. You may have come. The story is kind of a lot more darker than what you may have come to expect. Wuhan has a profoundly cool heart, and he was willing to do profoundly cool just to get rid of Chu. And he was willing to do anything just to get that night entirely. Anyway, before the night that Wuhan and his clan came up with yet another terrible. Wuhan and his clan came up with yet another terrible of what Chu could really handle would push the limit from someone who was literally pushing him around like someone who is literally pushing him around like a dirtbag. Meanwhile, Chu was starting to feel very frustrated. Meanwhile, Chu was starting to feel very constantly being red, and even once he felt as though he had constantly red, and even once since he didn't a harassment claim against him, since he didn't anyway. But Chu realized that he was not gonna have any more. But Chu realized that he was not gonna have any more of his clans to be safe and sound. He wanted his clans that was the safe and sound. This was one point. That was Wuhan had crossed the line in which between him and Wuhan had crossed. He crossed the line between socially acceptable and degenerate. He crossed the line between socially acceptable and degenerate. And he was heavily panicked. And he was Senpai reminded him to calm down instead, and that Senpai reminded him to calm down, and that instead he should not focus on Wuhan. But instead Chu decided that he was not going to, so Chu decided that he was not going to blow up instead. He decided to calm down. and uses coping strategies. He decided to use some coping strategies. Some of his favorite activities. One of them include painting. Some of his favorite activities. But his favorite art medium was Chu was into art. He decided painting a picture of some gorgeous trees. He decided painting a picture of some gorgeous trees. Chu was also cherry blooms in Sensoji Square. And he also did art in his high school career. He graduated and he also did art in his high school. So he's quite old. He graduated as of now he's currently 90. So he's currently 90 as of now he's currently 90. He's currently 90 can live from around 120 years. And Kumpai can live from around 120 years. So Kumpai's get to live a nice, pretty long life. So Kumpai's get to live a nice, pretty long life longer than the longest a human has ever lived on Earth. Than the longest a human has ever lived on 2 years. The longest being 122 years. From 1875 to 1997. After Chu was done painting, he decided after Chu was done painting, he wasn't going to write a story about Wuhan per se. He wasn't going to write a story about something else. But he decided to write about something a young Kumpa like he decided to write willing about to do anything a young so that way he could be a friend willing to do anything so that way he this was actually based off a personal experience that this was actually based off a personal experience. Chu was a relatively lonely person. But he did have Chu was a relatively lonely person all the time now. But he did have company back in the day. Chu was a lot more isolated. No one really seemed to talk to him. She was a lot more isolated. People would no one really seemed to talk to him and prejudice. People and just because he was a fear, stigma, and prejudice, and also because he was relatively different, both physically and mentally, he was relatively different. Both physically and mentally, continued to write the story, he started to get a little bit of tears to write the story. He started to get a little bit of tears in his eyes, and he was stunned at what he was writing. Shocked by the story. He started to cry at what he was writing. Of how he started to cry mostly because of the past, of how but Chu, of his shameful reminders of the past, himself and Senpai himself, Chu and decided himself and they were not gonna let this get in the way. Decided that they were not gonna let this get in the way. Chu spent a few minutes weeping, but then eventually came back to life. And decided that he was gonna let go of this past, and decided that he was gonna let go of this past no more. And he did that, and the past soon approached. And at this point, it was time to make dinner. And at this point, it was time to make dinner. Actually, they decided to have dinner. But however, they were going to attend another event downtown. But however, they were going to attend another event downtown. It was an animal at Sensoji Square. And a spring festival to celebrate the blooms of the cherry trees. And a spring festival to celebrate the blooms of the cherry trees. So Chu decided to make some dinner. For dinner tonight, so Chu decided to make some dinner. Some dinner tonight that he decided to make some which is noodles and kind of like Japanese noodles. Which so we decided to have some pad like Japanese noodles, complete with roasted red peppers. So we decided to have some pad thai, complete with roasted red peppers like and some tofu. Just name I don't really like tofu. Choose somewhat like tofu. It's mostly because I don't really like tofu that much, and that it's mostly because of the texture. Anyway, but and that was relatively much more calm and much but much more relatively much more calm and much earlier, and much more steady when compared. He had kind of let go of all of that anger earlier. He had kind of let go of much of that anger. Even his clan is and he was really much more that from the inside. Even his clan is outside really noticed that from the inside and from the outside too. Officially made soon after, and so Chu told everyone about it. Officially made dinner. He also and while they were grabbing their food, Chu had now. He also and while they were grabbing their food, Chu had now. Everyone turned around, guys, and Chu says, everyone turned around. I got something to tell you. Their mouths were still. I got something to tell you. I decided that I've let go of the past. I've decided that I've let go of the past. We're gonna go out and celebrate. And we're gonna go out and celebrate. We're gonna go out and celebrate in Sensoji. And we're gonna go out and celebrate the Cherry Tree Festival in Sensoji Square. The Cherry Blossom for the Cherry Tree Festival. That's gonna be very sick. The Cherry Blossom Festival, guys. That's gonna be very sick. Significant, right? Lamode says. Yeah, I agree with that. Said Lamode said. Yeah, I agree with that. I know. Chu said. Well, I feel much more better. Chu said. And now after this, well, I feel much more brush our teeth. And now after this, I'm gonna go brush our teeth. And then we'll officially head out. And now join us for a night. We'll officially head out. Company to join us for a night and join the company and the citizens of Central G Square in a pretty big citizens of Central G Square. How does that sound? In a pretty big fest. And everyone said that was. How does that sound? People started clapping, and everyone said that was good. People started clapping. Chu himself also started to tear up again, but only just himself also started to tear up again. He didn't even shed, but only just slightly. He didn't even shed happy tears. Chu and his clan decided to eat dinner. Things were much more calm and much more happy now. Things were much more calm and much more happy now. And soon they decided afterwards they all brushed their teeth. And soon they decided to head out. Wuhan was still being the cold-hearted self that I always was. Wuhan was still being the cold-hearted self that I always was. To sabotage Chu once again. He ultimately decided even though Chu had clearly told him to stop. Once again. Even though Chu had clearly told him to stop along with his clan, but he was gonna do it anyway. Meanwhile, while Chu were eating dinner. Meanwhile, while Wuhan decided to go down, was eating Central G Square. Wuhan decided to go down to Central G Square and join the Cherry Blossom Festival. They brought up their own inflatable. They brought up their own and they wore it like a mascot and wore it like a costume. And they wore it like a mascot. Each member took up quite a bit costume of the. Each member took up quite a bit. And they used the costume of the AM, and they would use the costume, and they used the costume, and they would use the costume and humiliate him once again, once out of all, and humiliate him once again, out of all. Then Chu and his clan came into Central G Square. Chu and his clan peaceful time into Central G Square. They were having a peaceful festival. And the paper dragons that were coming out of it. Festival, and the paper dragons that were coming out of it. And kids were also making Japanese desserts. And kids were also eating Japanese robot decided to make some more Chu and his clan and his robot decided to make some more and it came time for the Dragon Festival. Then it came time for the Dragon Festival. Dozens of dragons came along. At this point, all in costumes, dozens of dragons, and they marched one by one. All in costumes. Chu thought that this was going to be a very peaceful moment. Chu thought that this was going to be a very peaceful moment, remember? But it won't be because of Wuhan, remember? Then came his moment of sabotage. Then came his moment of sabotage. Wuhan and his clan. Wuhan came up with a dragon costume. And it was a relatively different dragon costume. And it was a relatively different red, green, or yellow. The dragons were either red, green, or yellow. And so the dragon costume was in a gold color. The dragon costume was in a gold color. Chu thought it was unusual. But what was more unusual is that after they decided to chase somewhere else. Out the premises. Oh no, and we gotta run somewhere else. Chu said. So without further ado, they ran away. So without further ado, they ran away. And his robot, Chu's Kumpat himself, all ran away at the sight of what they were seeing right now. All ran away at the sight of what they were seeing. That an imposter was literally trying to capture Mom. That an imposter was literally trying to capture Mom. Well, maybe not to death, but to cause some violence. Well, maybe not to death. But anyway, to cause some Chu and his clan were running for several minutes. Chu and his clan were running for several minutes. Chu came around and decided to take off until Chu came around and he was absolutely angry and stunned. And he was absolutely angry and stunned to see that it was Wuhan's clan. His fist started to lose his eyes furrowed. His fist were clenched, his eyes furrowed. But teeth showed. But Lamo tried to stop him. But Lamo tried to stop him.
Hey, Chu, I don't think this is...
said Lamo Sarge. But soon after, Chu Sarge said Lamo Sarge.
So what are you doing now? Are you literally trying to sabotage me?
So what are you doing now? Are you literally trying to sabotage me? Chu Sarge yelled.
With that.
At this point, Chu was having a literal meltdown. At this point, everyone was having a everyone was coming on board. Everyone was even starting to laugh and mock Chu. People were even starting to laugh and mock Chu at that point. But Chu was care what the people were even saying to him. To even care what the people were even saying to him. They watched as Chu was in utter rage. They literally started to yell in utter rage, and some people started to yell and degrade Wuhan. And those who some people turned their backs against Chu, and those who used to be Chu's idol, unfortunately turned away and never looked at there again. Unfortunately turned away. Chu felt very embarrassed. Then soon he came bursting into tears. Chu felt very embarrassed. Then come on, guys, he came bursting into tears again. Chu then slammed the door. Come on, guys, let's go. And so did Chu then slammed the door. And so did his clan. Chu had finally had the last straw. Chu had finally had the last straw. Great distress that night. Anyway, however, everyone was in great distress. Wasn't feeling very one member wasn't feeling very conflicted. He actually felt fine. And that member, in fact, was he actually felt fine. And that member that night was Hugh came knocking on Chu's door. That night, Hugh came knocking on Chu's door. Who is it? Chu said. And who is it? And Hugh started opening the door, but very cautiously. And Hugh started opening the door, but very cautiously. Hey, Chu, said Hugh. I can see that you're profoundly distressed, Hugh. I can see that you're profoundly distressed. Thank you, Hugh. Chu said. Yeah. Say. Thank you. I want to help you out. Say. I know it's Wuhan. I want to help you out. Why do you think he's doing this? I know it's Wuhan, and why he's doing why do you think he's doing this? She was in utter shock. She was in a deep thinking mode. He tried to figure out so carefully why Wuhan and she tried to figure out so carefully why Wuhan and he thought for several minutes. Until then, he eventually came. He thought for several minutes, and during those minutes, he was in absolute silence, trying to think and thinking. He was in absolute silence, trying to think and thinking. She had finally come up with it. Eventually, she had finally come up with it. I think I know how it started. Okay, it all started with. I think I know how it started. Kids. It all started with. Started telling the story. About how and so Chu started telling used to be friends about how he and Wuhan this actually used to be friends and even Chu himself. This actually Chu hadn't really remembered and even Chu himself. Since Chu hadn't really remembered shocked at all to actually find out that. But he wasn't shocked to actually find out that legitimate friendship at one point. But they had the legitimate friendship degrade into insulting by they slowly degrade into insulting by verbal arguments, tirades, and countless verbal arguments that were tirades, and countless other things. Wuhan was maybe even the inspiration about Chu Kanye Wuhan was maybe even the inspiration about Chu Kanye wife to being an edge. Chu had fun. Chu had fought hundreds, if not thousands of Kung Fu warriors in his life. Hundreds, if not thousands of Kung Fu warriors in his life. And so far, he was very about Wuhan. And so far, he tried to remember as much as he could about Wuhan. But he tried to remember as much as he could about Wuhan. Since Chu's memory was very worn down and degraded. 90 years he was very old Kumpai. Well, I can't really think of anything else, Chu said. Well, I can't really think of anything else. But Chu had already gotten the story. Chu had already gotten the story now. And he was ready to tell Chu what he could do now. I think I have an answer. Well, said What is it? I think I have an answer. What is it? I think, said Chu, you should talk to Wuhan. I think you should talk to Chu said. I want to do it, but how can I not get angry? Chu said. I want to do it, but how can I not get angry? Use your coping skills and use deep breaths. Use your coping skills and use deep breaths. Alright, Chu said. I'll give it a try. I'll give it a try, Chu said. I'll give it a try. Anyway, Hugh eventually closed the door. And Chu was thinking about what he was going to close the door. And Chu was thinking about what he was going to do. Also starting to feel. Meanwhile, Wuhan was also starting to feel he then decided that he was no longer wanting to fight Chu. He then decided that he was no longer wanting to fight Chu. But in order to settle their differences, Shu and against Shu in one final fight to go, and this fight would be one final fight. Their friendship and this fight go on the proof that it could continue, their friendship or it would die out and eventually that it could continue, or it would die out and eventually keep going to the cold hard ways that they had always been. Wuhan had grown a lair. A short that sincere lair. Wuhan had grown a lair. A short sincere lair. Wuhan went out late at night, and Wuhan went out late back to and went back to Chu's tower to deliver the lair. And went back to Chu's tower to deliver the lair. He left it on the porch. He left on the front. He left it on the and he walked off. He left on the front door. Wuhan and he walked off that night. And he decided that they would meet once again in Wuhan. And he decided that they would meet once again. The next morning came, and this one was a bit of a cloudy morning. The next morning came. No clouds. And this one was a bit. There were clouds everywhere. And it looks like it was about to rain. There were clouds everywhere. And it looks like it was about to rain. His robot woke up quite a bit better. His clanius robot woke up quite a bit better. But they were still heartbroken by their loss. Clan decided to have that morning to have Japanese clan to have and some Japanese toast to have and some orange juice as well and some Japanese toast. And but while Chu was doing that, he noticed something at the door. While Chu was doing that, and he noticed something at the door. He then closed the door. He opened the door and read these words. He then closed the door and read these words. I am profoundly sorry for what I have done to you. I am profoundly sorry for what I have done. One final fight with me. I would like to invite you to do one final that we can either keep our friendship. This will be and keep it going. That we can either keep our friendship forever and keep it going. Go into this earthless discredit forever. And it will go into this earthless void. A little bit worried about that. But Chu did accept a little bit worried about that. Chu decided to accept brightness. And then he decided to eat some and to go back to and then he decided to head off and to go back to Wuhan's temple. Mode said, don't worry, I'm gonna be okay. And don't worry, Clan, I'm gonna be okay. I'll be right back. And don't worry, Clan, I'm gonna be okay. I'll be right back. Chu then walked to Wuhan's temple. Chu then walked after that to Wuhan's temple. After that, he knocked on it. And so Wuhan is. Hello, Chu. Wuhan said, oh, hello, Chu. Oh, hello. Wuhan said, Chu said, oh, hello. I believe you want to endure me one final fight. I believe you want to endure me one final fight. And I want to do this fair and square. Yes, I did. And this does not have to be square. The final fight. And this does not have to be the final. And this does not have to be fight. We'll just have a quick fight, and we'll just have a friendly play, fight, and we'll just have a friendly play, okay? I accept your challenge. Alright. I accept your challenge. They spent 5 minutes together getting ready for their fight. They spent 5 minutes together getting ready for their fight. And so Chu and Wuhan decided to fight. And they fought for quite a bit. Decided to fight. Chu was trying to attack him with his. Chu was trying to attack him with his, and Wuhan was trying to do the same. They fought for quite a bit, and Wuhan was trying to do the same. They fought for quite a bit, and they decided to take a time after the gong hit. During this timeout, Chu and Wuhan decided to cool down. Chu and Wuhan decided to cool down and took together some water balls. They cooled down and took together some water balls. And but alone in their separate balls together. They were currently in their separate rooms. And they were currently in a dojo. And Chu was there. And alone in his private room. And Chu was wearing an opponent. And alone in his private room. Wuhan was in one too. On the opposite side. As well, Wuhan was in one too. On the opposite side were taking deep breaths. And Chu was stimming and taking deep breaths, tapping his foot down. And Chu was stimming a bit, and Wuhan was sort of doing down very rapidly. But instead, Wuhan was sort of doing his finger on his knee. but instead tapping
Soon with his
after
finger
about
on his
3
knee.
estimated minutes.
Soon
Chun
after
Wuhan
about
decided to
3
go back
estimated
into the
minutes,
circle. Chun
they
Wuhan
decided
decided
to
to
give
go
each
back
other
into the circle.
one last round.
They decided to
And
give
they would
each
be
other
done.
one last round, and they would be done. They got a fight, and the gong officially sounded. They got a second part, and the gong officially sounded for the second part of the fight. Chun Wuhan battled, but towards the end, Chun Wuhan battled, but towards the end, Chun Wuhan was knocked over, and it turns out Wuhan had it turns out that, but it wasn't Wuhan had but it wasn't Wuhan who was shoes, but Wuhan had said, connection starts working out then. Connection starts had finally accepted that friendship. Chun Wuhan had finally accepted that and decided to take some time. And Chun all the decided to take some time. And decided to go for the better. And change their names and decided to go for the better. And change their names from good to good. And from good for better. Worse. You know Wuhan and for good for better. I'm really sorry. Wuhan, I treated you that way. I'm really sorry that I treated you that way. Not always the most nice guy, but not always the most nice guy, but I like you. I really like you. You make me smile every day whenever we. You make me smile every day whenever we. But we do in a playful way, right? Fights. Yes, we do. We do in a playful way, right? That's what we always do. Yes, we do. You see, all this time we were just that's what we always around and joking. You see, we're actually friends in real life. Around and joking. We're actually friends in real life. And now this makes my heart grow even more. Chu said. It grows and now bigger, this makes my heart grow even more. It grows and bigger, like a spider astronomically outside. And this fire that's growing astronomically outside. I'm very glad to hear that. Well, Wuhan said. Now, without further ado, I'm very glad to hear that. Want to handshake? Now, and without so further ado, would you want to handshake? Chu said. And so Chu let's do a handshake. Sure. And let's acknowledge our differences. Let's do a handshake. And let's let go of and let's acknowledge our differences. And let's let go of the past. And so, Chu and Wuhan got into the center of the dojo ring. Chu and Wuhan decided got into the center of the dojo ring. And decided to give each other a handshake. They decided to talk for quite a while. After that, they decided to talk for quite a while, as it was almost time for making lunch back at his tower. As it was almost time for making lunch back at his tower. Alright, Chu said. Alright, I'll see you later, Wuhan. Maybe tomorrow, Chu said. Oh, I'll see you later, Wuhan. Maybe tomorrow. I'll do anything. Oh, sure. I know. I'll do anything for you. I know. But maybe my best. Anyway, Chu didn't actually say but maybe he said something along the lines anyway, Chu didn't actually say that. Don't worry, said something along the lines you're one of my friends. Don't worry, Wuhan. And that's what you're one of my friends to say. That's what Chu estimated to say that. That's what he kind of meant Wuhan to say. Was never but didn't actually say that. Or Wuhan was never his absolute best friend and that he neglected Chu. His absolute best friend and that he neglected Chu. And that would not make sense. But he claims that would not make sense. But he claims that Wuhan is one of his best and one of his friends. And Wuhan decided to head back home. Well, Wuhan was already back home. Decided to head back home. Well, Wuhan was already back. Chu decided to head back home. Temple, as he lived in, decided to head back home. The left as he lived in the towers of in a tower. The left tower and Twin Towers. Chu walked slowly home, thinking about all the things that Wuhan had meant home over all thinking about all the things and after all the decades that had been years, and after all the turbulent that had been adventure things, and after all those turbulent relationships. At this point, Wuhan and Chu's relationship was now no longer Wuhan and Chu's relationship. It was now no longer. It was more. It was slightly, but it was more flexible. They had both been willing to accept the change. They had both been willing to accept the change. They ultimately agreed to spend a bit more time together, and that they were no longer going to spend more time together, and that they were no longer going to fighting. Well, fighting mostly only for teasing. Well, mostly for fighting mostly only for teasing to have an actual fight, but never really. And Shu and Wuhan never actually meant to have those fights anyway. And Shu and Wuhan never actually meant to have those fights anyway. Not much into a super intentional or not much into a super intentional. They were of course profoundly intentional, and they had just been playful after all the years. And they had just been playful after all the years. Shu was getting near the end. Shu was getting near the end. He spotted Sensoji Square towards his time. And he decided to confront the people about what happened. And he decided to confront the people about what happened. Listen to me, everyone. Guys, and so everyone listen to me, everyone. Square, listen to what Shu, and so the Kumpa had to say, and what the 90-year-old the Kumpa had to say, and what the 90 about his relationship with magical creature had to say about his relationship. That I'm very sorry. I want to out of control last night. I'm very sorry. But guess what? Again, out of control last night. But guess what? Me and repair our friendship too, and we've made repair our friendship. And we never really met all those fights. We were maybe just playing around fights, because that's kind of what every kung fu kid playing around. You know, you don't just kind of what every kung fu kid does. You know, you don't just belligerent reasons, belligerent reasons, but you mean it in a way that's playful and meaningful. And so I want to apologize and meaningful. Say that so I want to apologize and by having saved that my behavior much off last night. Thank you. By having proved and I feel much and everyone Sensoji Square started to and everyone Sensoji Square and they also started to reconcile. Forgive Shu. And they also started to reconcile people from Sensoji Square, ranging from kids to elders, people from Sensoji Square, and even some employees started reaching out to Shu. And even some employees started reaching out to Shu. Especially Cindy from Samurai Cities. She decided to flatter Shu. And she decided to, and Shu was very flattered at, and they flirted for a little bit, Shu was very flattered at, in the end, they flirted for a little bit, and in the end, they decided to give each other a nice little hug, they decided to give each other a nice little kiss, and Sydney gave Shu was profound at, Shu was profound at, but he wasn't ready to develop this friendship. But he wasn't even far to develop this friendship or relationship. He still needed a lot more time to fully grasp what he was good. He still needed a lot more time to fully grasp what he was good to do. Well, I'm very glad to hear that everything's going very well with you and Wuhan. I'm very glad to hear that everything's going very well with you and Wuhan. I feel the same thing too. Yeah. I feel the same thing too, Sydney. And so we love each other. They waved to each other, and so we moved each other, and so Shu waved to decide to head off and finally go home. And so Shu decided to head off and finally go home. After quite a bit more of walking, Shu had finally came back quite a bit more of walking. Everyone was getting very worried up until now when Shu had finally decided to enter back into his home. Up until now when Shu had finally decided to enter back into his home. Said, what happened to you? Me and Wuhan got into a little fight, but guess what? We've recovered our friendship. We're no longer going to fight. We've recovered our friendship. We're no longer going to fight. We're friends again. Everyone was in shock. We're friends again. Everyone was in shock, and especially know that, especially his clan and his robot, that Wuhan and Shu were about to become friends again. That Wuhan and Shu were about to become friends again, and once and for all, because he had kind of already knew that, and he kind of already expected, because he had kind of already Shu and Wuhan were going to reconcile with each other, that Shu and Wuhan were going to reconcile with each other, and pave an entirely new road in their ways. For what they would do in the years to come, in future, for what they would do in the years to come. So Lamode said, thank you, Lamode said. Anyway, then Shu decided to make some lunch. And for lunch, he decided to make some lunch. And so everyone decided to make some sandwiches. And so everyone ate after lunch. Shu wanted some quiet time, so he went to his after lunch. Then around 3 p.m. they went to his afternoon. Then around 3 p.m. by knock on the door. Afternoon. Shu was heard by knock on the door, and so Shu opened the door, and it was so Chu. He opened the door, and he was very pleased to see Chu. He was very pleased to see Chu once again smiling. He was very happy to see Chu once again smiling. And I hear that you're all good with Wuhan, right? I hear that you're all good with Wuhan. Yes, we are. Hugh said. Yes, I'm very glad you came and supported me after all adventures. I'm very glad you came and supported me after all adventures. You're like my angel, my little angel, Kumpad. Anyway, you're like my angel. I know I went a little too far. Anyway, but that's what you kind of said. I know I went a little too far. But that's what you kind of said. I'm very glad you. Well, I'm very glad you. I'm super for helping me out on this tough situation. For helping me out on this. I'm glad that I was able to navigate it with your help. I'm glad I believe you deserve a special award for your help. I believe you deserve a special award for this. Yes, really. Hugh said, really? We're gonna make something big at this. We're gonna make something big after dinner. We're gonna go to get some ice cream. We're gonna go and it's gonna be your favorite ice cream. And it's gonna be your favorite, you said. It's always my favorite, especially ice cream, strawberry one. It's always my favorite, especially the black cherry one. I know, and so I like the black cherry one. And so Chu and Hugh decide to leave each other alone. And so Chu and Hugh and decide to leave each other alone for a bit. Chu spent some time thinking, and he soon came up. Chu spent some time to write his story that he soon came up. That he had wrote to write his story that he finally finished. That he had wrote, and the story was officially. He finally finished the story, and the story was officially. Chu was willing to share it. After their ice to share it, after their ice cream, Chu and his clan decided to cook dinner. Then, and for dinner, Chu and his clan decided to have dinner. And for dinner, they decided to have some after they had lamb. And after they had rice and soy sauce, they decided and after they had rice and get some ice cream. They decided to go out black cherry, as that was his favorite flavor. Hugh got black cherry, strawberry, as that was his favorite flavor. Lemon. Hugh got strawberry. Rue got raspberry. Rue got watermelon. Got raspberry. And Lamote got watermelon. Lemon cherry. And Lamote got. And I also forgot New. And New got nutty berry. And I also forgot New. And New got nutty berry. Chu and his clan went on home. After that, then Chu and his clan went on home. Alright guys, please listen up. I have a story I want to tell you. Alright guys, it's called I have a story I want to tell you. And so Chu read these words. And so Chu read these words. There once was a Kumpot who was pretty lonely. There once was a It was reminiscent of who was pretty lonely. I found myself in very uncomfortable situation. I found myself at the very uncomfortable situation of a social class. I found myself at the very bottom. I started to feel very unsettled about myself. I started just because I was very unsettled. Just because I was a Kumpot. Just because I was a No one ever seemed to talk to me, or no one even seemed no one ever seemed to talk to me. That was until, or no one even when I decided to make that was until when I decided to go out make a friend. And I decided to that's go out when I met a human for the first time. It's quite uncommon for human for the first time to. It's quite uncommon for Kumpots to. It's quite uncommon for Kumpots to be friends with a human. It's quite uncommon for. However, this human was so profound. And however, this human was so profound that I never gave it and was so caring. I became friends that I never gave it up. We were all friends, and we had great times. We were all friends, but as the decades went by, as the years went by, we soon found ourselves getting into a lot of trouble with each other. We soon found ourselves getting into a lot of trouble with each other, and countless other things. We started having turbulent and countless other things. We started having a however, that soon changed when. However, that soon changed when we started to reconcile with our ways. But soon, we started to reconcile with our ways. We sometimes used to cross paths, and very rarely have we done to cross paths. And very rarely we may have seen each other time to time, but never as often as we may have seen each other time to time, but never as often as we have. Wuhan, it's always been a pleasure to be with you. Wuhan, it's always been a pleasure. And I know I could be joking around with someone like you. But when I joke around with you, I'm someone from the bottom of my heart. But when I joke around with you, because when you're friends with a Kung Fu master like me, because when you're friends with a Kung Fu master like me, joke around or with a Dojo Master like yourself. But you can joke around very peaceful anytime you want. We don't actually intend to mean any physical harm. We don't actually intend to mean any physical harm. And we always mean it with great sympathy, empathy, and we always mean it with great sympathy. Sometimes we may get lost in our words, but sometimes we always try to get lost in our words out. But even we always try to help each other out, and that's what makes our friendship and our bond very special. And that's what makes our friendship. We cherish it and our bond very special to us. We cherish it. There's nothing that can really break us apart from it. And there's nothing that can really break us apart. You've always served as a very great character to me. Wuhan, as you've always served as a very great action hero. Maybe you can even become a great action hero. Maybe one day you'll be just as like as I yourself. Maybe one day you'll be just as like as I. I also hope that you see that our friendship means countless things to us. Not just to you and me, but to the entire world. Not just to you and me, we're known but for the entire world. Some infamous incidents. We're known for example at cities, infamous samurai cities, like for example at cities. But we're also known for having a playful attitude. But we're also known for having a playful attitude. We're known for our kind-heartedness, but also for sometimes we're known for our kind-heartedness, but also for sometimes our edgy we are. But that doesn't really define who we are. And I hope that our friendship is one kind for you, for the rest of your life, for you, for the rest of your life, for the rest of my life, Wuhan, and you have served as an incredible friend for me, Wuhan. I could not be a more happier than to share moments with you. I could not be a more happier and to share moments with you. And that were the words. And so that was the words that you spoke as the words. And those were the words that you spoke. Everyone clapped. Woo! And you said, everyone clapped. Woo! You said, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. It's really based off of real life events that happened to me. It's really based off of real life events that happened to me. Anyway, she said, and so things were relatively much more peaceful the next night. And so things were relatively much more peaceful. The next morning was going to be a fun-filled day for both Shu and his clan and his fun-filled day, and for both Shu and his clan and his robot. The day started off with breakfast as always. But this day started off with Shu and Wuhan were going to fight. But this time, Shu and Wuhan were going to fight. But this time, in a much more lighthearted way. And a much more Shu and Wuhan decided to fight each other. Shu and Wuhan decided to fight to teach one another. And Shu did the same thing to teach tricks that he from the bottom of his noggin. And Shu did the same thing with tricks that he knew from the bottom of his noggin. For example, Wuhan taught Shu how to do a jump kick. For example, Wuhan taught him how to do a jump spin attack. And Shu the clans learned a lot from each other. Spin attack. And they soon no longer learned a lot from each other. And they were sometimes no longer had where things got a bit tense during the session. There were sometimes a few but overall things got relatively much more calm. But overall things were relatively much more calm. And the clans turbulence and Shu's tumultuous the clans turbulence that had followed, that had relationship for the last few that had followed, that had things were much more bright and it looked like a bright things were much more bright and it looked like a bright future was up ahead for both the next then the afternoon. The two clans spent some time doing activities that they absolutely loved. The two clans spent some time doing activities that they absolutely loved. And so was his clan. Some of his clan members were also doing things like some of his clan members were also doing. And meanwhile, Wuhan, some of them were either doing painting. Some of them were either doing workout, doing painting, or even doing workout. They all had different and unique interests. And that's what made these two clans special to one another. They were similar in their structure, but they were all different in their characters and personalities. But they were all physically in their characters and personalities. At that physically and Shu and Wuhan decided to go out at that evening, and they invited their clan decided to go out to dinner, and they invited their clan to eat his robot. called. They decided to eat at a new place. It was a seafood Oliver's and was located not far. It was a seafood, but basically towards the very edge of Sensuji Square. But basically towards the very edge of Sensuji Square. And it was a very delicious. Everyone had. They also helped, and it was a very delicious seafood products. They also helped fish, lobsters to others as well as some biscuits, like fish, lobster, cheese biscuits, as well as be a little more specific and some cheese biscuits. To be a little more. They also paid their bills. And Shu and Wuhan. They also paid their bills. And Shu and Wuhan did this. Then afterwards, it came time to head home. Then afterwards, Wuhan went back to his temple. Wuhan and Shu went back to his temple. Before they did that, they had one last conversation. But before they did that, they had one last conversation. I suppose we better get going, Shu said. Well, I suppose we better get going, Shu said. Well, it's nice to meet you. I suppose I hope that we see each other tomorrow. It's nice to meet you, Shu. Yeah. I hope that we see each other tomorrow. Handshake. Yeah. Shu said, oh sure, let's do a handshake. Shu said, oh sure, let's do a handshake. And so they gave each other a handshake. And so they also did something else. And so they gave each other a handshake. It's okay if I give you a hug. They also did something else. Oh sure, let's give a hug. Give you a hug. Everyone get in the big clan let's give a hug. And so the everyone clans gathered into a big hugging circle. And so the two clans gathered into a big hugging circle. And after that, they decided to quite a few seconds. But each of them were all they decided to let feelings of love. But each of them were all like they had all profound feelings of love. As it seemed like they had all loved each other. They had loved each other because it was actually because they had loved each other because of a great their friendships had really grown up from each other. Had really grown their friendships had really grown up. Had really grown that much. And Shu with the last days clans were. And Shu and his clans were super happy. Shu and his clan and Wuhan's clan. Then it was finally happy about that. And so Wuhan gave finally one last look. And so Wuhan gave Shu one last look and waved Shu goodbye. Shu left him and decided to give him one last look. Left him and Shu decided to give him one last look. And then Shu said his goodbye. And then Shu was out the night up on his tower. And then Shu was up on Shu was in his tower. Everyone else started going while Shu was in his tower. Started to turn everyone else started going and going to Lamode started to turn himself off. The other 5 exopods decided to go off to sleep. The other 5 exopods decided to go off to sleep. And they gradually meanwhile for Shu, he decided to stay up a little bit later than you. Meanwhile for Shu, he decided to stay up a little bit later than Senpai real quickly. Senpai, guess what? Senpai, Shu said. Senpai, guess what? What is that, Shu? Senpai said, I've got something great for Shu. Senpai said, I've got something my friendship with Wuhan. I finally Are you proud of my friendship with Wuhan? Oh, I'm definitely proud. Are you proud? Senpai said. Oh, I'm definitely proud of you, Senpai said. A great accomplishment. It is quite, you see, enemies may never, ever become friends at some point. Enemies may never discover the way to do it. And I'm super proud you've discovered the way to do it. You've managed to make some hard-boiled friendships. You've managed and now you're breaking and now you've turned into unbreakable bonds. And now you're breaking and now you've turned into unbreakable bonds. Shu was starting to cry a little bit. But only Shu was starting to cry a little bit. Maybe just one single tear one little of his eye. Maybe just one single tear from the side of his eye. In fact, I'm very glad we've grown a lot more. In fact, we've actually grown a lot more. In fact, Shu grabbed out his stick. And Shu grabbed out his stick. And Shu grabbed out his stick, and then it showed Shu grabbed out his stick signed on, and then it showed Wuhan's name on it. Shu said, it's got Wuhan's name on it. Senpai Shu said, that's amazing. And so honestly can't remember if that happened. That's amazing. I was probably my very can't remember if that happened. Senpai himself I was probably my very old like Shu. Senpai himself was a Kumpai himself, just like Shu, but not as well as some of the others. They were all human. But not Wuhan as clan. Well, they were all human. I hope you have a good night. And well, I hope you have a good night. Go well. And I hope that I will. Please go well. I will. I will, Grandpa. Actually, Senpai was actually Grandpa. Senpai was actually Chu's grandpa. Then, Senpai stood still, and he stayed quiet for the rest of the day. Senpai stood still, and he stayed quiet for the rest of the day. And he wound Chu put his stick back under his bed. And he wound sleep, he was dreaming about Wuhan. And all the adventures that he was dreaming about Wuhan. And the day after all the adventures they were gonna have tomorrow. And the day after that, and the day after that. Lamode was dreaming about reading all of Shakespeare's works. Lamode was dreaming about reading all of Shakespeare's works. And seeing if he could actually read it in a month or two. And as well for the other 5 Koopas, they were all dreaming about Wuhan for the other 5 But some were maybe they were all dreaming about Wuhan their own fantasy. But some were maybe having mixed dreams or dreaming their own the town of Sensoji Square was also the town of Sensoji. Things were finally much more quite quiet that and crime had things were finally much more peaceful. And crime had really overall things seemed to be at very great end. Overall, things seemed to be at very great end. Tumultuous relationship. Things had already gone quite better. Relationship, and that was things had already gone quite better. Who knows what that was only now. But in the years and decades what they could do now. From now but in the years and decades to come. From now until the end of time. Wuhan's friend will become unstoppable and will become unstoppable. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story. It was quite a lot longer. I hope you enjoyed this story. It was quite a lot longer than the Phoebe and Snow one, but as well, we'll also get a chance to see the characters later on in the credits. We'll also get a chance to see the characters later on in the credits. There we'll get to see Chu, Lamode, Hugh, and Wu, as well as Wuhan's clan and Wu. So I hope you enjoyed this film, Wuhan's clan. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this is only part 1. Anyway, so this is now just officially complete the first. So we've now just officially completed installment of the Chu trilogy. Installment of the Chu trilogy. Not quite exactly done. So well, not until the credits not quite exactly done. But there are 2 more parts to get part 1. Chu and the Rise of the Emperor. There are 2 more parts to get. Which will be the first Chu and the Rise of the Emperor. The final showdown which will be the 3rd film. Which will be the final showdown of the world. The 5th film. Which will be, I hope that you enjoy this film, the 5th film, and I hope that you enjoy this telling you the story, and I hope that you get to learn more about telling you the story, and I hope that you get to learn more about how amazing this story, and I hope that you tell everyone, since I've worked hard on this story kinda is, quite a long time, since I've worked hard on this for quite a long time, 2022, since about January 2022, so it's been quite a while, about January 2022, so it's been I'm really glad you can enjoy it. As well, I also made a book. I'm really glad you can back in. As well, I also made a book about it. I actually made like a full-fledged book from September 2022. I actually made like a full-fledged book actually from August 2022 to September 20. Actually from August. So I made an entire book to September. And I made this into like an entire book. And I made this into like an adaptation back in. And that was of course back in September 2022. And that was of course that was when I was in 2022. But things have kind of changed. So that was when I was in. So the story may not be all that accurate. Changed now. But so the story may not be all that accurate. But and it's kind of just a revision. But anyway. I hope that you enjoyed this wonderful world. But anyway, and I hope that you enjoyed this wonderful world. And I hope you enjoyed Sensoji. I'm Caleb Burnett, the creator of the film. Anyway, I did this film all by myself. Burnett, the creator of the film. The second film I did ever create all by myself. And this is I hope that you enjoy ever create all that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you take care. That you've enjoyed it. And I hope that you take care. You have cared to a profound amount. That's all. You have cared to a profound amount. And now the credits will roll. Sincerely, Caleb Burnett. And now the credits will roll.